Imagine God's love revealed. I'm Alan Harris, your regional pastor and president for the Christian Church in Ohio. The 2021 Christmas offering is a special day offering of the Disciples Mission Fund that supports the ministry of all the regions, but in Ohio, it supports the ministry of our regional church, the Christian Church in Ohio. Imagination isn't the sole property of the Christmas season, but I think it is fair to say imagination flourishes at Christmas in ways unlike other times of the year. Whether through our pondering of what Mary or Joseph or the shepherds must have been thinking and feeling at the birth of the Christ child, or picturing what presents you'll have under the Christmas tree. Dreams, fantasies, and imagine surely run wild the month of December. This Christmas, I would like to invite you to let loose your imagination in a different way. Try imagining how faith and spirituality might take shape if your local church or the regional church had all the resources we needed to fulfill the mission and ministry that God is calling us to for a new day in a new world in 2022 and beyond. If the church could follow the invitation of Jesus Christ boldly, confidently, and totally, what would that mean for your community or neighborhood? What would that mean for the state of Ohio? Or really, what would it mean for the world? Each year, the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, through our local congregations and through online giving, receives gifts for the Christmas special offering, which supports the ministry of the regional church. 100% of the gifts received for this offering in our Ohio churches will go to further the mission and ministry of the Christian Church in Ohio. The regional church helps make known the love of God as it is lived out through the life of the church, locally, regionally, across the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada, and around the world through global ministries. Your gift to this special offering allows the very imagination you have for the church to become a reality. Some of the current vital ministries of the regional church that are revealed when we give to this offering include how the regional church connects congregations and leaders to each other, how it fosters faith development and gathers disciples in camps, conferences, retreats, and assemblies. The regional church nurtures the development of a new generation of pastors and lay leaders. It assists churches in calling new ministers. It interprets the global mission of the church, both the global church to the local church and the local church to the global church. It represents the church in ecumenical and interfaith gatherings. It counsels and prays with clergy and lay leaders in good times and in not so good times. It leads the church to address racism and other important injustices. The regional church inspires leaders to innovate and create. It witnesses to the power of God to make things new. The Christmas Special Day offering supports all of these and many other ministries of our regional church. I'd like to go through each one of these just quickly and let you know a little bit of how important the ministries of the regional church are and how your gift to the 2021 Christmas offering will help us do these things and more. The regional church connects congregations to each other for mutual support, celebration, and resource sharing, and it connects leaders one to another. Some examples that I've pulled are the blessing of the chaplains and COVID memorial service we did last Memorial Day to remind ourselves how important it is to nurture and support the work of our chaplains, especially during this most difficult time of the COVID-19 pandemic. Sometimes it's fun things like the District 4 gathering this summer, the picnic and cookout we had, or the District 12 Thanksgiving service that brought churches from around the greater Cincinnati area together. The regional church also fosters faith development through spiritual workshops, webinars, retreats, and developing shared resources. Here we have just a few examples. Of course, our camp and conference program is one of the places where faith is developed and nurtured and discipleship is encouraged. But also, I work in your behalf to do lots of teachings. The example you have here is me keynoting the Advance Conference, summer conference this summer. And you will remember that the new curriculum that came out from the Office of General Minister and President Teresa Hord Owens about covenant, we led one series of this covenant conversation class online, and I had the joy of sharing that with Reverend Heidi Barham. The regional church gathers disciples in camps, conferences, retreats, and assemblies. Of course, this is what most people think of first when they think of the regional church, but it is one amongst many ministries that we have. Here you have just a few pictures from some camps and conferences, as well as a meeting of the Camp Christian Committee. So many people in our regional church, those here and those who've gone on, found their spiritual life developed in very important ways at Camp Christian. Sometimes it was receiving a call into ministry. Sometimes it was meeting someone who would be your future life mate. Sometimes it was just getting to know your own self and how God was speaking to you more deeply. The regional church nurtures the development of a new generation of pastors and lay leaders. We do this in so many ways, but here are just some examples. You will see me with the newly ordained Reverend Lisa Rashad at Washington Avenue Christian Church in Elyria. There in the center is Reverend Paul Baumley as part of his ordination service at Hampton Park Christian Church in Toledo, Ohio. And then to the far right, you see Karis Gilmore Essig and her sharing a poem as part of the regional church celebration and installation service, perhaps the youngest leader of that special service. Whether it's through the Commission on Ministry, whether it's through our camp and conference program, whether it's through the mentoring I do as your regional minister, or supporting the mentoring and the guidance of all of our congregations, clergy, and lay leaders. This is such an important part of what the regional church does. We also assist churches in calling new ministers. And I will say we also are working with ministers who are in the search and call process to make sure their search for a new congregation or ministry in which to serve goes thoroughly well. You'll see here on the far left the Reverend Don Baird, regional elder, and I with one of our commissioned ministers, and we give thanks for him. We see below that one of our search committees meeting virtually. That happens to be the search committee from Findlay Christian Church. In the middle there, you'll see me with the new co-pastors of Central Christian Church Kettering. That is the Reverend Dr. Betty Miller Green and the Reverend Dr. Irvin Green. And then on the far right, you will see me at the installation service of the Reverend Faith Solon as assistant pastor at Northwest Christian Church, along with their senior pastor, Reverend Cynthia Adcock. there are so many pieces of the puzzle that go together in calling new ministers and helping ministers seek new calls that it's almost impossible to capture the energy and time and importance of these processes. The regional church also interprets the global mission of the church to the local congregation while also interpreting the local mission of the church to the denominational and global community. I find the regional church is central to helping both of these parts of the church understand each other, whether it is the denomination or global church or the local church, and connecting these two and interpreting them in important ways is very, very critical to the life of our church. You'll see on the far left 2 pictures from the Cleveland Christian Homes summer golf fundraiser. We work with many institutions in and beyond the church that do the mission and ministry of Christ in our world. This is just one example of them. In the middle, you will see a gathering of leaders from the United Church of Christ and the Disciples of Christ in the southwest part of the state to talk about disaster relief and actually specifically the continued work to clean up and work on systemic issues following the tornado in Dayton back in 2018. And then on the right, you see just one snapshot of our disciples' virtual gathering that happened in August, a creative way to do something as the wider church. And you'll see Reverend Stephanie Kendall, who is one of the moderators of our church, as well as a picture of our general minister and president, Reverend Teresa Hord Owens. The regional church represents the church in ecumenical, interfaith, and non-profit gatherings. You'll see just a few examples of how I and other staff and lay leaders in the region show up in ecumenical ways. To the far right, you will see me with several of our leaders, including the Reverend Dr. Jack Sullivan, who is the executive director of the Ohio Council of Churches, and the Reverend Eric Brown, who was at a particular event for justice at the Ohio State Capitol. In the middle, you will see me working on a webinar. Actually, it was an interfaith prayer gathering for justice, particularly around justice for formerly incarcerated persons and around the systemic issue of gun violence in our society. And then on the right, I am in the midst of several leaders of a worship service that happened to dedicate the new sanctuary building at First Community Church in Columbus, Ohio. It's their North Campus in Dublin. That is one of our ecumenical congregations, which is both United Church of Christ and Disciples of Christ. And there in the center, you will see their pastor, the Reverend Glenn Miles, who is ordained Disciples of Christ. Likewise, the regional church counsels and prays with clergy and lay leaders. This really is a simple line that represents hours and hours and hours of both fellowshipping with our clergy and our lay leaders, counseling, certainly, offering advice and some mentorship, celebrating anniversaries and milestones in their lives, and an awful lot of prayer and help and discernment as our lay leaders and our clergy are trying to decide their future in ministry. Of course, the regional church leads the church to address racism and other injustices. For over 2 decades now, the Christian Church Disciples of Christ has been dedicated to being a completely and thoroughly pro-reconciling and anti-racist church. And we work hard to make sure that not just trainings happen for our clergy, which are required, along with healthy boundary trainings. We also try to make sure that we support local congregations when they do efforts that seek to address systemic racism and other kinds of injustices in our society, and helping congregations as they seek to become open and affirming, or Green Chalice, or a refugee welcoming congregation. Here are just a few snapshots. You'll see me again with the Reverend Dr. Jack Sullivan of the Ohio Council of Churches, which does an awful lot of wonderful work on behalf of justice and equity in our state. You will see me there on the next picture with the Reverend Yvonne Gilmore, who is our transitional executive secretary for the National Convocation of the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, in one of our Zoom calls. Then you'll see two pictures from our free store, which is the region's outreach that helps to utilize our best asset, our Camp Christian, in ways that help the community around us and to help those people and those families be sustained in powerful ways. Next, the regional church inspires leaders to innovate and create. This is something that, with your gifts to the Christmas offering, will help me and the regional church council and our committees and commissions and task groups to do more of. Because really this is the future of our church, is to be on the cutting edge of what God is calling us to figure out what we need to leave behind so that we can have our hearts and our arms and our minds ready to receive what God is calling us to. Just some quick pictures here. You'll see a fun picture from the ordination service of Reverend Allie Miguel at New Horizons Christian Church in Akron. And in the middle, you'll see our 3 advanced conference officers for this year. And that is Erica and Brian and Kate. And then on the far right, just a quick picture from one of our many staff meetings. I am gifted to work with innovative and creative and gifted and wise staff members. And of course, you will note that the Reverend Alan Dickon is no longer on staff with us, but I wanted to celebrate his work with us. And that is below him, Tom Bowerman Jett, our campsite manager, and Jenny Stoddart Bernard, our regional administrator. And last but certainly not least, the regional church helps the church, helps individuals, helps clergy, helps lay leaders, helps all of us to witness to the power of God to make things new. And certainly after the last 18, 20 months of this trying time in our nation and our world, seeking to make things new on God's behalf must be our mandate and our calling. And 3 pictures that represent this to the far left is our newest congregation in formation, Freedom and Truth, Christian Church in Cleveland, Ohio, under the leadership of the Reverend Shauna McGee. That is a group of folks from that congregation doing mission and ministry in the world. In the middle there, you'll see we are in transition in our Commission on Ministry Team 2 leadership, and to my left, your right as you're viewing the picture, the Reverend Carol Etzel is the outgoing team leader for Team 2, which works with our commission ministers. And then to my right, your left, Reverend Julie Corey, who is our brand new Team 2 commission leader. And then on the far right, the picture of a group of people behind the table, that was at the dedication service for the new building for Harmony Springs Christian Church in Greene, Ohio. And I thought it represented a new day for many of our churches that are trying to find a way to transition into new ways of being in the world. You will remember that it is the renewed vestiges of Heights High Street Christian Church in Akron. They are now in a brand new building that is multi-use and designed to be utilized in new and creative ways, many of which have not even been imagined in that area in Greene, Ohio. Their lead pastor is Joel Ingman. Imagine God's love revealed, and we support that love with our energy, our wisdom, and our financial resources. We can turn our imagination into reality and make God's love real for a new day and for those who have yet to experience the transforming love of Christ. When you give to this offering, thank you for helping the Christian Church in Ohio to be your partner in making God's love real this Christmas. Find out more about our mission and ministry at www.ccnoh.org. And to give to the Christmas special offering directly online and credit your local congregation, go to thedisciplesmissionfund.org/give. And on behalf of all of our regional leaders, our regional church council, our regional staff, I thank you so much for your generosity in years past and in years to come. Thank you, and God bless you.